body was found in this area behind some bushes, about a half a mile from Wendy Mansell's house. Sheriff James Farrow says the body was wrapped in a garment and that the child had been dead for several days.
She'd been missing more than 24 hours, and being found in this location in the condition of the body in which she could have not walked in there and died accidental. So we definitely think she was murdered and placed there.
State troopers, National Guardsmen, and deputies began combing the woods near the Mansell home Saturday looking for Wendy, but nothing was found until today. Farrow says he has suspects in the case, but he won't know for sure if the body is that of Wendy Mansell or the cause of death until an autopsy is performed. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News, Tallapoosa County.
Mrs. Thomason served 8 years on the state board seat before losing to Krill in the last election. She says the Alabama Education Association heavily backed Krill's campaign, and his record in office is as AEA Director Dr. Paul Hubbard desires. Thomason says the man AEA handpicked to oppose her, quote, isn't fit to serve on the board.
Look at the real Krill. In case number CV 80243P, the Montgomery County Circuit Court convicted Ron Krill, the man supported by Hubbard, of fraud and slander in a trial involving a cancer insurance scheme.
Now, Thomason says she wants to continue supporting many of the same programs she helped implement when she served on the board. One is the statewide kindergarten program.
Test scores prove that a child who has kindergarten does better all through grammar school. It is time to make kindergartens available to all.
Thomason says she also supports a certified teacher competency program, exit exams for high school students, and the return of discipline and order in the classroom.
Been asked the question,
WSFA TV
that
News
what did I think of Ron Krill's record?
March 31st, 5 men armed with sawed-off shotguns and handguns entered Good Time Charlie's Lounge. They robbed the business and 2 customers. May 18th, 2 armed men robbed the clerk at Herndon Super C service station. May 21st, 4 men armed with handguns entered the Zip convenience store on South Decatur Street, and for no apparent reason shoot and seriously wound the clerk before taking a small amount of cash and fleeing. And May 23rd, 2 armed men fire 1 shot as they rob the clerk at the 7-Eleven store on the Mobile Highway. Montgomery Police Captain E.B. Alford says it was around these incidents that police centered their investigation. And today Alford announced that hard work by the force has paid off. Alford says 23 first-degree robbery charges, 2 attempted murder charges, 1 first-degree theft, and 16 various misdemeanor charges have been filed. The charges were divided among 10 adults and 2 juveniles. Police are still looking for 1 man in connection with the Zip Mart robbery. Alford says police hope high visibility of police officers will continue to help deter crime in Montgomery as warm summer weather sets in. Meanwhile, more robbery charges are expected to be made against 3 suspects in connection with other armed robberies in the city during the past half year. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
In the past 6 months as the investigations unwind. On May the 18th, 1982, robbery homicide investigation. May 21st, 1982, 4 black males armed with handguns under age 22 at 4028C North on the project area between High Street and Adams Street, just on both sides of Hall Street going south. There's been 22 robbery warrants signed on criminals in that area.
The House and Senate today adopted a group of amendments that correct some typographical and numerical errors found in the bill over the weekend. Since the legislature passed the bill last week, those amendments had to be adopted in the form of executive amendments from the governor, leaving the legislators little option to change the bill otherwise.
As soon as
The
it's
32
received,
House
we'll
members and
take it
9
up.
senators continued their
Apologize
protest
for
of
the
bill by
delay,
voting
but
against the amendments
we've been waiting
and
for
attempting to
folks to
kill
get
the
back
bill
in
and
pocket.
tack
As you
their
know, the
amendments on
governor
another
received an
version of the
award
bill
in
still
Atlanta
before
lunch
the House.
today, and
Some of the same
opposition
amendments
was
we
made
had
up
on the
primarily
floor
of legislators from
to
Birmingham
switch some
who
people
claimed
out
they were
of
being
one district
force-fed
over to
a plan
another
they
in
didn't
certain
like.
section.
relying upon
Legislators
the
from
people
Madison
who have
County
done the
who
work,
say they
and the
only
bill has
wanted to
been
make
now
some
checked
minor
back
adjustments
against the
not
computer
affecting the
printout
black-white
3
ratios.
times.
Representative J.E. Turner of Citronelle, who was trying to redraw the line so he could stay in his current district.
Yeah,
and
we were
members of the
swapping
Black
2,500
Legislative
white
Caucus who
people and
protested
3
the plan
blacks.
from the
All right.
onset,
And
saying
the
it doesn't
decision
allow
was made
blacks
to
equal
ask that it be left
representation.
out.
The House, though, closed the door on their effort to alter the plan and accepted the amendments making the technical corrections.
I move it
Yet
be
another
adopted
battle
on
broke out on a separate bill that would
House
change
Resolution.
election laws temporarily by extending the time limits to prepare the new voting districts and allow local election
Chief
officials
amendment
the
that
option of
addresses
using paper
typos,
ballots where voters in a
computer
single voting
printout that
precinct
picked up a
may
few
vote on
things that
separate
were
House or
in
Senate
error
seats.
in the bill.
The Birmingham delegation led the protest, saying the paper ballots would be too confusing. It even led Birmingham senators to threaten a late-night filibuster, but after about an hour they gave in and the bill passed. The reapportionment bill now goes to the Justice Department for their final review. Still facing the legislature is the concern over whether the Justice Department will accept this plan and concern over whether a 3-judge federal court panel here in Montgomery will decide if it will also accept the plan or override the Justice Department and order a plan of its own implemented. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
Home with report cards. Most of them will bring home good marks, but are implemented. We are graduating to secondary schools' interest as well as the post-secondary interest. To my knowledge, he's running just as hard as he can run and has been for some. I began the effort to provide kindergartens for every school district. I fought for teacher competency programs. I will continue the work I began to provide kindergartens in every school district. Test scores prove that a child who has kindergarten does better all through grammar school. It is time to make kindergartens available to all.
Since I'm running for Secretary of State and we don't know what the incumbent is going to do, it's been the fact that I had already held that office, was familiar with the duties. One of us will win and one will lose.
But you still won't have access to this information that you're talking about, is that?
Their support of
Thomason
Ron
says she supports
Creel
many of the same
in the
programs she
name
helped
of the
implement during her term
principles
on the
of
board.
the
One is a
AEA.
statewide kindergarten program.
I
Others
ask
include
for your
exit exams for high school students and a certified teacher competency program.
Despite the opposition of some special interest groups, I will continue to fight for a certified teacher competency program. Our schools cannot be any better than the training of our teachers, most of whom I believe to be presently competent and dedicated. I will work to see that the plans that I helped form for exit exams for high school are implemented. We are graduating too many young people who lack the basic skills.
Thomason knows federal dollars are being drained from the state education budget. She says, however, funding can be
Most
picked
of
up by
them
the
will
state
bring
and
home
local
good
school
marks,
systems if
training
people
for
support
gifted
public
children.
education. Thomason says she expects a tough fight against Creel, the man who
From
defeated her
special
4 years
interest
ago.
groups
She says the
who
Alabama
have a
Education
stake in
Association can
continuing
pick
to
Creel.
do things
Thomason
as
says she
usual.
expects excellent support.
I began to ask any
Kim Hicks,
businessman,
WSFA TV
and
News.
he will tell you that he cannot house
It's super great to be here. Days all over your banana sandwich or whatever. It's dribble and I shoot. I got pretty good and I can shoot. Jeannie Duke's here. Where's she at? She's our DeKalb County representative. Well, I couldn't play on the team because I couldn't dribble, and I was cheerleader, but I still was going to get a basketball scholarship. I said, I got to get the scholarship. I didn't think I was the only one, but when I got down there, I said, oh my word, I didn't know all these girls were so talented. Again, on being here. And in closing, I just wish to say, go ahead, grab an opportunity. Junior Miss is a definite plus. Thank you very much.
Betty Frink got into politics 24 years ago when she was elected Secretary of State in her first political race. If elected this time, Mrs. Frink says she'll keep a low profile and administer the laws the legislature makes.
I don't foresee getting involved in a lot of legislation. I won't say that I would not contact some of the legislators or get involved maybe in something I felt like was important, but I don't foresee being a real activist in getting a lot of laws passed myself. I leave that with the people in the legislature.
When asked about issues, Mrs. Frink says the issue to her right now is who will be her competition. She says if there's no opposition, there'll be no issues. Ms. Frink says she's running for Secretary of State because it's a position she's held before. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
We don't know what the incumbent is going to do. It's been a little touchy as far as me feeling free to go down there and talk and
This is where the body was found. Sheriff James Farrow says it was wrapped in a garment and hidden so that you couldn't see it, even if you were just 10 feet from it. He says he suspects murder because of the condition of the body and because a little girl couldn't have walked in there and accidentally died.
The clothing in and around the body were the same described clothing that the parents had told us Saturday around noon when the search began.
Authorities have been searching for the little girl since Saturday, but nothing was found until today. This clump of bushes is about a half a mile from the Mansell home and about 100 yards off the road. State toxicologist Dr. Tom Gilchrist has the body, and he should identify it and file a report on the cause of death tomorrow. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News, Tallapoosa County.
DeKalb County representative. Well, I couldn't play on the team because I couldn't dribble, and I was cheering. I am a firm believer in us girls, and this is just one way. This pageant is the best way of saying, I'm a lady, I can do it. But I've always wanted someone to say, I've been working for you all my life. And Junior Miss has been working for you all your life. That's what it's all about.
Today is the day our parents take you to the courthouse. We are going to get married today. If it's okay with you, I don't mind thereafter. When you take your vacation, you let me know from the night before and last year. So I can take my vacation. I see you looking at that girl. You ain't slim.
We need more emphasis on training for better jobs in technology, computers, and automation. These programs are CB 8243P. The money, I appreciate the confidence you have shown me in the past. I would like to ask you some questions. I will be brave enough to attempt to answer.
About Ron's record in court and his honor. What do you think of his record?
I've been asked the question. No, not to my. Which will be a fundraiser.
Fort Rucker, Alabama is the home of Army aviation. This month, Fort Rucker celebrates its 40th anniversary, and TV12 is proud to help in that celebration. This is Bob Howell. Starting tomorrow night, I'll have a three-part series outlining the history of the post, its major contributions to our country's military training in the field of rotary wing aviation, and its expanding role in the future. Find out the inside story of Fort Rucker beginning tomorrow night in the 6 o'clock report.
Well, the legislature is currently taking some final action on the legislative reapportionment plan, and as Chris Grimshaw reports, one last attempt was made by disgruntled representatives to change the plan to their liking. Chris is standing by for a live report from the state capitol. Chris?
Mac, over the weekend, the Legislative Reapportionment Committee and the attorneys for that committee were checking over the bill that was passed by the legislature last Friday, checking for errors, of which a number were found. Corrections to those errors, most of which were typographical and/or duplication of numbers, were made in the form of an executive amendment from the governor today. Those amendments, however, were almost blocked when a group of some 32 representatives from Mobile, Huntsville, and Madison counties and Mobile counties tried one more time to try and change the bill to their liking. They were trying to get amendments adopted that did not necessarily deal with the black-white ratio with the various districts that had been contentions. There had been contentions of that with the Justice Department. They were instead just trying to make various changes, getting certain blocks and areas back into their districts. A group of those representatives met with the Justice Department this morning where they say they met no opposition from the Justice Department to their proposed changes. However, there was one change that could have caused problems. The group said that the change to Representative Lee Pegue's district over in West Alabama, which would have reduced his black population percentage, would not have met a great obstacle from the Justice Department, although it would have created a problem in that it would have necessitated a number of other changes to other districts to compensate for the black-white changes in that area. The entire House membership, however, objected and blocked the attempt to change the bill and to reopen the reapportionment plan. 2 more changes, accepted the governor's executive amendments for the technical errors, and then passed the bill on over to the Senate. The Senate will now have the option of accepting or rejecting these executive amendments. If they do accept them, that will put the bill in position for final review from the Justice Department. That doesn't close the entire issue, though. A 3-judge panel in Montgomery, a federal court panel, still presides over a court case filed by blacks who are opposed to the reapportionment plan, and those blacks say they still have several points of argument, hoping to convince that 3-judge panel to impose a plan of their own. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News, reporting live from the Capitol.
Thank you, Chris.
40 years ago, 4 Army infantry divisions began training at the Ozark Triangular Division Camp, later renamed Camp Rucker in honor of Confederate Army General Edmund Winchester Rucker. In 1954, the Army Aviation Center was located at Rucker, which was chosen over 7 other sites across the country. Its primary mission was then to train pilots for the UH-13 helicopters and the L-19 Bird Dog fixed wings. Since then, Fort Rucker has been home to tens of thousands of Army aviators who firmly established the role of the helicopter in America's defense plan. Today, Fort Rucker covers 63,000 acres in southeast Alabama. Each year, it trains 2,000 initial entry flight students and more than 7,000 mechanics and air traffic controllers. Thousands of people who want to know more about the history of Army aviation come to the Aviation Museum located on Post. It's one of the top 6 attractions in Alabama and is free to the public. It boasts a collection worth more than $75 million, which traces the history of the helicopter from its inception through present day. And it contains some one-of-a-kind aircraft and helicopters and planes flown by military leaders like Douglas MacArthur and President Dwight Eisenhower.
Sheriff, you've had a break in the case. What's taken place so far?
Well, we have arrested a 17-year-old white male. We have arrested a 17-year-old white male as of yesterday afternoon. He is now in the county jail, Tallapoosa County, and he will be started off in juvenile court. And that is about as far as I can say at this particular time.
Prove that a child who has kindergarten does better all through grammar school. It is time to make kindergartens available to all.
The program is in the dark ages. We are so far behind in this country. Technology, Texas Instrument plants in the United States. And he says, I'm ashamed I don't accept second class in any instrument. I only accept a high standard of first class. And I want to be associated with a boy that's looked upon by the public in the news media that is first class. And I don't want our backs to get to the wall education and industrial-wise, because industry and education go hand.
Special interest. Instead, I will battle for better trained servicemen, have grown tired of being represented by a Republican congressman who has become both inactive and insensitive. Billy Joe Kemp called me yesterday and said that he was thinking of perhaps running for this seat also. Of course, he originally thought that he was going to run for governor, and he has already announced his candidacy for the lieutenant governor. So it won't change my plans. I'm running for Congress. I have been committed to the congressional race from the outset, and you'll just have to talk to Mr. Kemp to see what his plans are. But is the way he seems to be jumping from thing to thing, I really don't know what he's going to do. But he did call me yesterday and express an interest in this seat.
Do you think that'll lead?
Creel met with reporters in Montgomery this morning to say he's not going to get involved in name-calling, which Creel says his opponent for the District 2 board position, Isabel Thomason, is doing. Yesterday, Ms. Thomason said Creel is a member of the Alabama Education Association political machine, that he's unfit to serve on the state board. Creel says she needs to look at his record on the board and get her facts straight.
I'm not part of any political machine. If AEA has a political machine, that's their business. I don't get involved in their business. They don't get involved in my business.
Creel says he will run a positive campaign.
And I hope the day will never rise that I've got to go to a personal attack. But if she chooses this type of campaign, so be it. It won't affect my campaign one bit.
Creel says the day he stoops to gutter campaigning, he'll resign his office and drop out of any political race he's in. Creel says Ms. Thomason is bitter because she lost the election for the District 2 board seat to Creel 4 years ago. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
This is not what they're getting. The present congressman serves on the House Administration Committee. Congressman had the worst absentee record. No, I'm not the most common. Billy Joe Kemp called me yesterday and said that he was thinking of perhaps running for this seat also. Of course, he originally thought that he was going to run for governor, and he has already announced his candidacy for the lieutenant governor. So it won't change my plans. I'm running for Congress. I have been committed to the congressional race from the outset.
Locks are being changed on the doors, offices are being cleaned out, and the football coach is making calls trying to find another job, all because the school ran into financial difficulty. Headmaster Frank King says Central Academy owed $550,000 on a loan taken out 4 or 5 years ago, and he says the school just couldn't make payments. So the loan was defaulted on, and the school was bought. Now King says St. James Academy will lease the building and move the 1st through 8th grades to this location. King says although the school couldn't meet this financial obligation, enrollment wasn't a problem. He says Central was the only private school to have its population increase last year. But he says all private schools are facing tough times because some parents can no longer afford the high tuition payments required. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
Cost several $1 million. In addition to that, it's off. But any questions on that particular issue? He thinks they're awfully close up, awfully close. The cost of it has gotten to the point that unless some modification takes place in the next several years, it will jeopardize the ability of the state to provide the services it's designed or should provide without either cutting back the direct cost to real services such as hiring a teacher, hiring a state trooper, filling a pothole, building a bridge. Have to cut back in order to continue to fund the retirement and fringe benefit funds or either change the tax structure in an upward direction. The next special session that you're referring to, I think there were 19 or 20 little items. This is this way and that this special session and perhaps the next one or the next one are designed to finish some unsettled business. Business unsettled.
Governor James appeared pleased with the prospects of combining an election year with his reform efforts.
I'd like to announce today that I will start my campaign for the issues that the special session will address.
The issue this time will be retirement.
Alabama has the most lucrative, extravagant set of retirement and fringe benefits of any state in the United States, and it's far better than the federal government. What we wish to accomplish is to have a competitive compensation system, both in salary and in fringe benefits.
The governor says he'll offer a plan that gives employees the option of keeping their current benefit levels or two lower levels of benefits that also offer tax-free cash bonuses. As for the governor's political aspirations,
I believe that you'll see a unique time in Alabama politics when such issues as cost of government, jobs, interest rates are really going to be made vivid. I'm going to see to that. And I have made no plans at all but for one campaign, and that's the campaign for this special session.
beginning next week, Governor James will once again take his issues campaign to the people in the form of a 2-week roadshow, hoping to build up public support for his reform measures. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
Some road that could not be.
Annie, Sapo came up with this bright idea that since we had the rain out for the golf tournament, a part of the Lindsay weekend, and he just put the $50,000 contribution to Special Olympics in this umbrella in $1 bills and give it to you that way. Will you accept it in that manner?
Well, I certainly will, Mayor. For 20,000 Special Olympians and the 5,000 volunteers, this proves that Seppo Black and the Drummond Company and George Guberlin's our head coach. They're the greatest. There's no doubt about it, and it's great to be on a winner.
After having finished my shower, I looked out the window and I saw this cross. It was a beautiful thing to see, and at that particular time, I just felt that it just meant for me.
Reverend Fox can't explain why. Every morning since April 28th, the shiny cross appears only in his bathroom window, nor can he, his wife, or others who've seen the cross explain why it's visible only on sunny mornings when the sun rises and the cross appears to rise with the sun as it eases across the sky. There are other possible missing pieces to the puzzling cross. Reverend Fox and his wife want to know why now. The bathroom window has been installed for 8 years. He thought maybe it was a reflection from his car, but so far that explanation hasn't satisfied viewers' curiosity. People who've seen the mystery cross describe it as beautiful, a natural phenomenon, amazing, the work of God, who Reverend Fox believes has the only answer.
I believe that it is there for a purpose and that it has a meaning and that someday it will be revealed and we will understand all about it.
Kim Davis, WSFA TV News in Tuskegee.
Headmaster Frank King says he walked into work Monday morning and found that he was out of a job. He says the school couldn't make the loan payments and keep running all at the same time, so there was no choice but to close the doors for good. What happens to the teachers and students of Central Academy? Well, the teachers and staff are out of a job, and the students no longer have a school to go to. But King says other private schools in the area are competing for Central's 265 students. He says teachers and staff don't have that luxury.
We don't know what we're going to do. We're hoping that somebody will look at us and think we're worthwhile to be talked to for a job. So as of now, we're unemployed.
Staff members are cleaning out their belongings and making calls to other schools, hoping to find a new opportunity. St. James Academy is planning to lease the building from Ben Collier, chairman of the Board of National Industries, who bought the school for the amount of the debt. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
Program is in the dark ages. We are so far behind in this country, technology.
Who have a stake in continuing to do things as usual. Home with report cards. Most of them will bring home good.
In fact, it will work in my favor. But I will make this commitment to the people of the 2nd District and the State Board of Education. The day that I have to use a gutter-type campaign, I resign as a member of the State Board of Education, and I resign as a candidate in any political race that I would considered.
This is what they expect their congressman to give them. But this is not what they're getting. The present congressman serves on the House. In 1982, the present way that I know how to do things is to work hard. The present congressman will be more of an asset than it will be a liability. I have worked hard all my life. My father taught me how to work, to spend $5,500 of our tax dollars to go on a trip to Paris rather than stay in Washington and vote on bills pertaining to medical coverage to Vietnam veterans, medical care to POWs, education.
Tallapoosa County authorities are very reluctant to say anything about the case or about the preliminary hearing that's reportedly taking place here at the courthouse. The Tallapoosa County juvenile officer, Eddie Lancaster, says that under Alabama law, he's not at liberty to say anything, even if a person has been taken into custody. However, the Tallapoosa County Sheriff Farrow did make a statement for TV 12 News.
Well, we have arrested a 17-year-old white male as of yesterday afternoon. He is now in the county jail, Tallapoosa County, and he will be started off in juvenile court, and that is about as far as I can say at this particular time.
Although authorities refused to give any information, several Carville residents said the youth arrested was a 17-year-old who lived near the dead girl's home and reportedly told authorities that he was probably the last person to see Wendy Mansell alive. Her body was discovered less than a mile from where she disappeared this weekend. Carville Mayor Lehman Pepper says the town has suffered a great loss, and residents still have trouble believing a tragedy such as this has happened.
There's nothing ever happened like this in Carville before. I've been here since 1959, and we have never had anything like this take place in this town before. So it has upset the people considerably.
Even though state and county officials are prevented by law from telling us even the purpose of today's hearing in Dadeville, some of our sources are telling us that today's hearing was to determine if the 17-year-old juvenile will be tried as an adult. If that happens, more information will be released in the case. In any event, citizens in Carville say it will be a long time before the death of Wendy Mansell is forgotten. Matt Carmack, WSFA TV News in Tallapoosa County.
A few years ago, Johnny Cash introduced you to a boy named Sue. Tonight, let me introduce you to a Supreme Court Chief Justice named Bo. And let's be honest, how many Chief Justices do you know who are known by a nickname? Of course, if you were stuck with a name like Clement Clay Torbert, you might prefer being called Bo too. The truth is, there are a lot of things about Bo Torbert that conflict with the usual perception of a Chief Justice. When you think of a Chief Justice, there comes to mind an elderly type, a white mane, very grave, very somber in appearance and demeanor, a perpetual look of judicial concern on his face. That's hardly Bo Torbert. Meaning no offense to his honor, Bo Torbert might better be described as a good old boy. He has a good time. He enjoys life to the fullest. He laughs easily and often. If he ever appeared on that old TV show, What's My Line, nobody would figure him to be a Chief Justice. But appearances can be deceiving. From all sides, the verdict is the same. Bo Torbert has been an outstanding Chief Justice. He assumed the position in 1977 under difficult circumstances. There were still some bugs and kinks in the court system resulting from the still new judicial article. Some yet remain, but most have been ironed out by Torbert. Bo Torbert was born 52 years ago in Opelika, and here is pictorial evidence that as a first grader he was a cute little fellow. As a youngster, he did the usual things. He liked to ride horseback. He'd wet a hook on occasion with some success. And on one fishing trip, he went one-on-one with a menacing rattlesnake. At Opelika High School, he was captain of the basketball team. Torbert entered Auburn in 1947 to study pre-med, but a newfound and understandable interest in a pretty Auburn co-ed named Gene Hurt resulted in a neglect of his studies. He gave up on being a physician, entered the U.S. Naval Academy. 2 years later, his mind made up to become a lawyer. Torbert returned home and entered this law school at Alabama. By the time he became a lawyer in 1954, he had spent 18 months in the Army, but much more importantly, Gene Hurt had become Mrs. Bo Torbert. In 1958, Torbert entered politics, winning a seat in the Alabama House and being named the outstanding freshman. Later, he served 2 terms in the state Senate. Because of his splendid record in the legislature, it seemed inevitable that someday Torbert would seek a statewide office. He was mentioned as a candidate for lieutenant governor, for U.S. senator. but it was for Chief Justice that he ran in 1976, and he won by a landslide. As we said before, his administration of the state judicial system has won him acclaim within and without the state. Even in his judicial robe, he still looks like a good old boy, but he's a good Chief Justice and a very interesting person.
Governor James says he'll offer his retirement reform measures a third time when he brings the lawmakers back for their second special session this year. The governor says his plan to offer state employees the option of keeping their current retirement benefits or choosing two lower options will save the state an estimated $50 million and keep the state from being forced to consider what he considers two worse alternatives.
Either cutting back the direct cost to real services, such as hiring a teacher, hiring a state trooper, filling a pothole, building a bridge, have to cut back in order to continue to fund the retirement and fringe benefit funds, or either change the tax structure in an upward direction.
The governor said he didn't know how many other reform issues he might include in the special session or hold for later ones, but he said he intends to keep the reform issues alive during the campaign season. But the governor still wouldn't indicate if he intends to run for a second term. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
Is representative of our heritage of value and our heritage of performance. We have such
We're wrong for the second time.
Has contributed to some degree to what each of us is today. This is true regardless of whether our families have been here since Alabama became
appeared. There's a drive, deep left.
I thought it was a miracle because I'd never seen anything like this before.
When I looked, I was just mystified. You know, it was so out of this world.
Why can't it be by our house?
These curious spectators have seen the shiny cross that Reverend Fox says has been appearing in his bathroom window since April 28th. That morning after his shower, Reverend Fox says he spotted the cross in his window and wondered if he were the only one who could see it. Once word spread in the town about the cross, many others have stopped by between 6 and 9 in the morning to take a look. Reverend Fox says several explanations have been offered. He says it's something he can't explain.
I'm living in the hope that someone will come and give us the answer. The only thing that I know, if it isn't done that way, just check with the Almighty, and maybe He may reveal it to us in His own due time.
Kim Davis, WSFA TV News in Tuskegee.
In the American League, Oscar Gamble of the New York Yankees is this week's Player of the Week. In 5 games, Gamble batted .500, including 3 doubles, a triple, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs, and 1 game-winning RBI. Due to numerous Yankee injuries, the 32-year-old part-timer was suddenly the everyday right fielder and responded by raising his average 74 points to 256, and that included a 300-plus average against left-handers. The American League's Player of the Week, Oscar Gamble of the New York Yankees.
Important things done here in the Capitol, but what about these plants downtown? How about those? How well do they fare?
Hi, this is Bob Howell. I'm flying a mission on the Cobra gunship, one of the many aircraft that are flown at the Army Aviation Center at Fort Rucker, Alabama. All this week, we're going to be helping the Army Aviation Center to celebrate its 40th anniversary. We'll see exactly what aircraft the men and women of the United States Army train on and how they're becoming the aviators and pilots of the U.S. Army of tomorrow. Join us each night during the 6 o'clock report as we help celebrate Fort Rucker's 40th anniversary.
A federal grand jury in Indiana has handed down an indictment in the shooting of civil rights leader Vernon Jordan, wounded 2 years ago by a sniper in Fort Wayne. James Polk has a story.
Joseph Franklin was a Southern drifter, an avowed racist, a man whose travels were marked with murder. From the time of his capture in 1980, Franklin has been the suspect in the attempted assassination of civil rights leader Vernon Jordan. Jordan, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, for a speech as National Urban League president, was shot and badly wounded as he drove back to his motel with a white divorcee 2 years ago. Finally, a federal grand jury has indicted Franklin on a civil rights charge for shooting Jordan. If convicted, Franklin would face 10 more years in prison. He is already serving 4 life sentences. 1980, Salt Lake City, Utah. 2 black men were shot to death by a sniper while jogging with white teenage girls. Franklin has been convicted of those murders. Oklahoma City, a black man and a white woman shot to death. Indianapolis, Indiana, 2 black men killed. Franklin is charged with all 4 of those murders. Johnstown, Pennsylvania, a black man and white teenage girl shot to death by a sniper. Cincinnati, Ohio, 2 more black victims. Franklin is the suspect in those cases, a total of 10 racial murders in which he has been implicated. Vernon Jordan was the only victim to survive.
The evidence against Franklin remains largely circumstantial. There has been no breakthrough. Justice Department attorneys finally decided to close the file by bringing Franklin to trial. James Polk, NBC News, Washington.
This rather gangly-looking device isn't a prop left over from Star Wars. Actually, it's a $6 million AH-1 flight simulator. Totally recreates all of the movements, sounds, vibrations, and characteristics of the Cobra helicopter. Inside the module is a real Cobra cockpit, with all its controls connected to a computer. 2 television screens project pictures of what the pilot would see if he were actually flying. That countryside over which he appears to be flying is actually this terrain board, a 20 by 60-foot topographical map complete with houses, trees, and of course, enemy tanks. The pictures in the cockpit are coming from a specially designed television camera system that moves over the terrain board, accurately recreating the movements of the student pilot at the controls. The computer is also linked to the mechanical and hydraulic controls that move the module in any combination of 6 directions. So when the student pilot moves the control stick, let's say down and to the right, the whole module platform does likewise. But how does the Army rate the accuracy of the simulator?
98% accuracy of being the same as in the aircraft. If an individual is in the simulator, close the doors and put them on motion and put them in a cloud, it would be just like being in the aircraft.
The instructor pilot constantly monitors every aspect of the flight and has the ability to stop the flight to point out mistakes and can even call for an instant replay of any part of the flight where the computer recreates the student's flight movements. Plus, the computer gives the instructor a printout of the entire mission and the information necessary to evaluate the student's performance.
Here in the simulator, we can do and duplicate anything that's possible to do in the aircraft. In fact, we can do more because here we can crash and burn if we need be, or to kill someone in order to objectively teach the training point.
Private military organizations other than the National Guard of the state at places in Alabama. It's rather fluid. It moves around and joined in Texas today. Our organization intends to file suit in Alabama to enjoin the Invisible Empire Night of the Ku Klux Klan's paramilitary training group in this state. The commander of that group is Terry Tucker, and his training camps are located in northern Jefferson County, Walker County, and in Coleman County, Alabama. And we have some film of his group in operation, and we have some photographs of his group in operation, and they have been harassing blacks throughout the state over the past 2 years. And based on this lawsuit, we intend to go forward with our plans now to seek an injunction. A statement that Randall Williams, our director of Klan Watch, has
way. That may be just a little bit high, but with the economy the way it is and the cost of living, it will probably go to that amount. Well, it is, Chris, but everyone who runs for office takes a chance. And that what I did was right for my family. Our main purpose that was set forth by the Founding Fathers, of course, is to have that balance, that system of checks and balances in state government.
Landowners from all over Pike County gathered at the National Guard Armory in Brundage to discuss what they call unfair land appraisals. Inside, the Committee for Fair Tax Appraisal of Pike County was planning strategy to fight directives from State Revenue Commissioner Ralph Egerton. Committee Chairman Tom Norman showed the group copies of appraisal rate structures of Pike and Crenshaw counties that he says are very different. Norman says property owners should appeal their cases to circuit court if the County Board of Equalization doesn't grant them relief. Norman is a member of that board. The landowners were urged to take their case to court so state revenue officials would be tied up in an almost endless string of legal actions. That, according to Tom Norman, is how they'll win. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News, Brundage.
2 years ago, the HELP program, Help Eliminate Law-Breaking Pushers, was launched by the State Department of Education, state troopers, and the Alabama Elks Association. A toll-free number was established to let residents in the state report illegal drug activity, and the public has responded. Over 1,000 productive calls have been made on the line, and the confiscation of illegal drugs in the state has more than quadrupled in the 2 years a program has been in existence. Now the sale of alcoholic beverages to minors will come under the wing of the HELP program. Administrator of the State Alcoholic Beverage Control Board, Joe Broadwater, says stopping the illegal sale of alcoholic beverages to teenagers is his department's #1 priority.
We're concentrating on the sales to minors, where maybe 2 years ago we were making the same number of cases, but we were involved with just as much priority possibly on maybe sales on Sunday or on illegal stills and so on, but we're concentrating and have placed a priority on the sales to minors by licensees.
Broadwater hopes that parents and other people will phone in names of stores and businesses that sell alcohol to minors. Coordinator for the HELP program, Ron Creel, says new material will be distributed throughout the state to make the public aware of the new addition to the program and the procedures for reporting illegal alcoholic sales. Don Phelps, WSFA TV News.
One of the things that the main thing we hope to receive is make it easier for the parents or any other adult out there who sees licensees permitting alcohol beverages being sold to these minors to be able to report it to us. Well, primarily you're talking about beer because that's
All of the these little kittens need a home, a place to play, good food to eat, and someone to love. The Humane Shelter takes in thousands of cats and kittens throughout the year, but Director Jerry Anderson says June is the peak feline breeding season, and they've got more than enough to go around.
You know, when you have such a surplus, like 8 million will come into the shelters this year. And, you know, if there's not enough homes to go around, we have a real problem there. And we try to get this word across through mall displays and free literature at all our displays to inform these people that, you know, there's just too much, the overpopulation is more than there are homes, you know, for the animals.
When you come to adopt a kitten, there are several things you need to look for. Make sure the eyes are clear and that the ears and gums are pink. And also make sure it's playful. As you can see, all of these kittens here at the shelter fit that description perfectly. Of course, the cat is the national chair cat for Adopt a Cat Month, and he even provides a checklist for selecting a human. First, the human must be friendly, have a comfortable lap, be good with a can opener, be a good groomer, understanding, and be prompt with din din. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
Deepest appreciation for each of you as individuals for paying the price, for being good students, being involved in the activity within your local community and your school that qualified you for this trip here. And get a balanced budget and provide services. Yet, house. Or anybody to buy a house need to be closed up because they favor the criminal, the mugger, the rapist. In our special session, that's one of the issues that we're going to address. Not that a wonderfully competitive political scenario is good for the state, good for the individual.
Open the opportunity today. As most of you know, we were over in the building adjoining this for the last 2 or 3 months, and we're rather cramped, and the oxygen were added this area of the state as well as other areas, but particularly here in Montgomery. Pleasure to officially open this office, and I want you all to feel like it's your home. Good.
Greeting now to each of you. I'm just so happy to see this large group to come out and help us on this. Then we'll get all lined up about picking one. Colonel Walton. Then you come in a little closer where we can see you real good too. Now you photographers, now you line us up.
Coach, it must have been a tremendous coaching job to make a 230 hitter into a 360 hitter and quadruple his home run production.
No, I'm afraid not.
I think that credit's got to go to the ball player. It was just a grand total of a lot of things coming together. He probably applied some things we've been talking to him for 2 or 3 years, but he matured and grew up and got stronger, and I'm sure that all along he felt like he could do it, which was real important, and he kind of got everything together, as our kid says, and things started happening right for him. He got started off real well, and he found out how, when things are not going well, to kind of get out of the bog, so to speak.
How do you feel about your chances, your marketability in the baseball draft?
I'm excited about it. The draft's is coming Saturday, and I'm ready to see what happens. Hopefully I'll get drafted high and see what happens from there.
And then there's the proving. I mean, the college is a proving ground in a sense, but then you really have to prove yourself in the farm system.
Right. I'm excited, like I said. I think I can play in the field with anybody, and I just have to wait and see what the pitch is like. I'm sure once it's a little bit better in college, but once you get in there and see it for a while, I'm sure I'll just.
That's what I'm trying to get.
This because we are prejudiced. You know. Then we'll get all lined up about pictures, won't we? Sure, well,